Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would find myself on the top level of a vast multi-story car park, a level open to the skies above. A number of real side experiences have I shared over the years, where a multi-layered car park features and where the representation is of a creation. For indeed, what better way can creation be represented through the current distortion it has become as the reflected effect of a very dense and compacted overall consciousness, of a convolution of ideas, a rigidity of routine, and perpetual patterns of destructive, nonsensical behaviour and unconsciousness, than can best be symbolically expressed as a structure of a concrete, and as creation comprises of the 6 levels, literally speaking that it does. The real side multi-layered creational representing car parks will consist of 6 levels also. In this case, as I would find myself operating on the top level, this would suggest the ethereal, the final, if you will, consciousness-affected dimensional position, the intuitive and subconscious arena, with the never-ending and expansive skies above, representing the endlessness of the isness, the true reality, aside from the restriction that is cause and effect creation, the multi-layered car park of life levels corresponding to the created body vehicles. It seemed I had a particular objective, overall a destination that would begin in the ethereal. For it is so that everything begins on the real side, every idea we create, or ideas as created by others, we agree with, every intent we formulate, will be instantaneously manifested other-dimensionally, and although taking the moments it will to filter through to the densest physical level, as through the additional consciousness-installed ideas of time and space, so there is a delay factor from idea cause to effect outcome. Every idea we generate and set in motion must show up eventually. For the cause and effect mechanics of creation dictate that everything created is at some stage experienced immediately on the other dimensions and real side, and eventually in some form or other on the physical. Even though everything is within the nowness of the isness, where in reality all ideas, as expressed in creation, that of simulation, distance, and time, are fabricated, and cannot exist in the true reality, which by its very reference incorporates everything, and where nothing in isolation can be, with the literal application of description in regards to idea creating, so everything must rather begin at the top, the ethereal, and somewhat filter through the life levels accordingly, the physical being the final dumping ground, as DUANE has often referred to it as. For on the top ethereal life level, so I would approach a car that had been left unlocked. Symbolically, cars represent ideas on the real side, that should we find ourselves driving or being transported within a vehicle, so this is indicative of agreement we have with the idea that the vehicle represents, be the idea our conception where we are at the wheel, or the creation of another that we are in agreement with, and where we would find ourselves as the passenger. Cars can also represent then the various dimensional bodies or aspects, as these, like everything in creation, are ideas. And as we may utilize our various body vehicles, the emotions, the mind, etc., so this may be demonstrated real side as our operating within particular cars, and oftentimes their colour may denote the body vehicle they represent, red being the emotions, orange the causal, blue the mental, purple the ethereal vehicles, etc., which would rather suit the overall creation representation, that is the car park, that it would contain cars, as these then would represent the various body vehicles in accordance with their associated life levels, and be found parked or in motion throughout the multi-layered car park. This particular car then, on the ethereal, as it was unlocked and left unsecured, suggested a rather open individual, that just as the houses may represent the overall consciousness, and our ability to access them determines how agreeable an individual may be, or perhaps the extent to which they are the unconscious effect of themselves, their consciousness of ideas, that I could access the ethereal vehicle of whichever individual this was, and indeed very likely could any other, by virtue of the door being unlocked, as the ethereal is the subconscious seat, so this would be an individual very open and susceptible to idea implantation subconsciously, subliminally, and it follows then that I could easily have placed an idea within the subconscious representing a vehicle if this was my inclination. However, my objective was to extract an idea from the subconscious of this individual seemingly, and suggesting perhaps then the individual whose subconscious this was facilitating my assignment, allowing me the idea I required that it could be executed, leaving his car door open that access could be gleaned. For what I extracted from the car seemed to be a complete body encompassing a black in coloration metallic suit, including a face obscuring mask to match. It reminded me a little of the attire as adorned by Darth Vader in the movie franchise Star Wars, and I would now proceed to put the outfit on, as impressions suggested this was essential that I would be able to proceed. The car park scene now fading, and where I would be traversing through multi-dimensional creation, still wearing the black metal suit. That although far easier would it perhaps be to be inserted directly at the point of my intended destination, the real awareness, as a part of the isness everything, that permeates through all consciousness affected dimensional position, rendering every position available to the real awareness, a case of locking in agreement with whichever idea effects the desired location, and a simulated form can be instantaneously placed there to carry out whatever is required of it, generally utilizing whatever mechanisms of creational traversing that is available, as made manifest through a consciousness decision, favors this more convenient mode of real awareness, immediate transportation, and form insertion. For this affords more detail, which equates to more ears recognizing comparable reference, and the more that features in our experiences, the more likely retention and recollection of them is so on waking, especially if the details are over-exaggerated. As it transpired, I was traversing rather dark and disillusioning regions of creation, as this appeared to be the requisite route, and where the wearing of the body concealing metallic suit permitted that I proceed without challenge or altercation, as the general body forms operating on the journey were as dubious and unwelcoming as the dimensions they resided within those I was passing through, and the suit seemed to allow my blending in, as though of a particular that installed the consideration in all I encountered that I was one of their own, and they would not then be motivated to impede my progress. The suit may be more representational, for the ideas we carry can be symbolized as the clothing we wear on the real side, and as though then the idea representing suit afforded me certain idea credentials, as though the equivalent of forged documentation that facilitates access. There was one point, however, where impressions suggested the necessity of removing the helmet, that my face be revealed. I had transitioned beyond the dimensions where going full incognito was essential, but in the region of creation I now was entering, were I to retain what was very likely an outer guise for the purposes of infiltration, an outer guise or idea that presented me as though among the ill-intended, as this new dimensional area comprised of beings of a more benign countenance, but those that wouldn't take favourably to the presence of the ill-intended, or those they construed as being so, to avoid any unnecessary entanglement and misunderstanding, so as I said, my helmet was removed, that my face be revealed. And as I proceeded, I now would be fully shed of my outer guise, the black metallic suit, and seemingly required now was for my negotiating through a vast mechanical contraption comprising of enormous cogs and machinery in motion, that I had to be somewhat spatially aware that I could successfully traverse through it without incident, without being crushed. Perhaps nothing more than further representation of the nature of creation, the great machine that is the overall consciousness constantly in motion, the engine room of everything effected from it that is multi-dimensional creation. And as we proceed through our creation process, we endeavour to remain indifferent to it, that we are not absorbed into the machine, symbolically crushed within its mechanics. For full immersion into a consciousness and creation has very aptly been described as a death, the self-implosion that all restricting ideas clung to must yield as, the ultimate expression of which is a demise of the very consciousness-effected simulators. Impressions suggested this was a particular part of the consciousness engine room I had to traverse through, for we do have to face the entirety of creation and the personal self, confronting every idea cog that creation comprises of, and releasing that which we face, ensuring that we are not captivated, allured, or sucked back in this case, mauled and destroyed by the mechanized contraption, processing through it a seeming necessity for my intended destination in this experience. Having navigated through the contraption unscathed, I now would find myself in a natural environment setting. Just ahead of me would be a garden of a kind, and imperative was it that I traverse through it. The garden was overgrown, and not only would tangling weeds belabour my progress, but there would be areas of it teeming with rather ominous, oversized insects, mutated and grossly malformed, boasting oversized stingers, unnaturally enlarged mandibles, etc. I gingerly would continue, avoiding most of the areas of the garden the insects had laid claim to, but a final section of the garden presented me with little choice but to inch past a metallic fence that was planted in the ground, and where still further of the outrageously sized and lethal-looking insects were clinging to. As I said, my objective was to make it through this curious garden, that I could continue on to whatever my destination happened to be, but just as this was to be achieved, I somewhat snagged my clothing on the final section of the metallic fence, and while extricating myself, so I would be confronted by two very diminutive, dwarf-like humans, whose garden this evidently belonged to. Impressions revealed they were characters of a dubious intent, perhaps the nature of their garden that which it contained, indicative of their consciousness design, were we to take the garden as perhaps representing their subconscious, as is generally the symbology. They seemed to be gatekeepers of a kind, but prior to my determining if I was successful in bypassing the boundary that they and their garden represented, the scene would fade, my destination never revealed, at least at this moment. In a scene that followed, I would find myself in an altogether different situation. But perhaps it wasn't unrelated from the first. Maybe this was my destination I had sought previously, though I couldn't verify this was the case. For I seemed to be operating in a vast complex of advanced sci-fi like laboratories and work areas, assigned a particular role as one of the scientific characters. Within the complex were large numbers of what appeared to be humans, and their purpose here was in regards to preparation, as though they were being in some way altered physiologically, that would be a benefit and aid to their survival. I have shared on a number of previous real side experiences that as the awareness process is embraced, as the ideas of consciousness that restrict and limit are released, so are afforded more opportunities and options in regards to survival, along the lines of potential relocation from the Earth should situations become adverse to the extent of it being unfeasible to remain, or at the very least alterations consciousness exacted that effected are more robust and resilient body forms, able to withstand greater severity of environmental stresses than the more fragile human body type. As a form is effected from a consciousness, alter the consciousness, and the form will be changed in accordance. And this seemed to be the situation here, as I said, a large number of humans being subjected to what visually presented as a treatment, as though they were patients in an advanced sci-fi hospital. Evidently humans that were able to have such a consciousness alterations made possible by virtue of they releasing the ideas of consciousness which had presented as limited circumstances, and where they would deny themselves such options, along with the vast bulk of humanity who elect to remain consciousness immersed. Present in the complex would be two especially tall individuals, standing approximately 8 feet tall by my estimation, that although appeared human, impressions suggested they were not, more along the lines of alien body forms shape-shifted as human. These two characters were the lead scientists orchestrating this entire operation, overseeing the consciousness tinkering that would effect Thru as a body form alteration for all humans who had agreed to be subjected to their scientific efforts. There would be a number of regular-sized human scientists additionally, adhering to the tall lead scientist's directives, with myself operating also as one of the scientists under the tall being's lead, as I mentioned. Present also would be a former school colleague called Keith, and as I also have previously shared on a number of real side occasions, this is a form as favoured by the guides and impressions revealed. This was indeed the case here, as though the guide were overseeing this operation, and I was directly reporting to him as to our progress. At one stage I was administering each human patient, for want of a better term, with a kind of a frequency, applied through a very sophisticated looking device. Important was it that a second dose of the same frequency was administered within a certain time duration after the first, for the frequency was a part of the process of the consciousness restructuring, and after it had effected its alteration, so necessary was it seemingly to apply the second dose, as though this was for the purposes of mitigating potential side effects. Although this procedure wasn't infallible, one of the humans, having received her second frequency dose, would have an adverse reaction and required additional support that her symptoms could be alleviated. But overall, everything was managed and coordinated, and nothing untoward would befall the humans, each of which, as I said, were receiving consciousness alterations via technological means, that their body forms effected consequently would be more resilient to what may very well be deteriorating Earth conditions, should the controllers be able to proceed with their various environmentally impacting agendas. The scene would switch to where the very humans we had consciousness altered were present on the Earth, along with the scientists, myself, the guide in Keith's form, and the excessively tall and very likely alien lead scientists. For it seemed our technological-based body form enhancing operation was continuing on the Earth's surface, and where we were coordinating with other groups of scientists involved in this project globally, and transporting batches of humans back and forth, as though required were certain steps of this procedure at particular Earth locations and science stations. One large group of humans were black, and impressions revealed these were specifically Africans, and I would be deployed to oversee and handle the consciousness alteration procedures in regards to them. Overall, as I said, an operation that will afford the humans involved the ability of resiliency in the face of, and to a greater degree, environmental stresses that the average human body form isn't designed to withstand, suggesting that either certain of those on their awareness processes are resigned to remain on the Earth even in the event of escalation of dire circumstances, or perhaps to remain only for a certain duration, for whatever reason this will be, and then possibly to be relocated from the planet and join those already repositioned, as seems to be the final solution and contingency. For despite our body form resiliency, what prudence would there be in remaining on the Earth, where the possibility of sharing with humanity no longer is realistically feasible? But there are many variables and factors involved. Ultimately, each individual, and indeed humanity, decide their experience, based on agreement, or indeed the releasing of it, which renders them with more options and opportunities.
Yeah, he's got this opening there, so it can be kind of scary. So he's meeting a lot of stuff there, but I'm sure he's protected, so this won't happen. The little beasts will be in cages or what have you. So yeah, I can imagine, in some way, many people listening to Kevin's experiences and wondering what the heck is going on. And are these things at his house? Where are they?
Beware.
I know. I know.
Bring your hazmat suit.
Yeah, exactly. So again, people listening to this, look at it objectively, it's like, huh? So this is far out stuff. We'll see where it all leads. So we're confronting everyone, and this is what I suggest, is that everybody step up and confront whatever. So it's not a matter that, oh, I'm going to stay over here and I'm going to be okay. It's like, no, nobody's okay. You're in creation. This is how it is. Get ready to step up and do whatever, do your part, because this is how creation is, and then life's the bigger picture. So I know it's a big surprise and wake up for all of us. It really is. And as opposed to our agreement with our la-la land here, that's make-believe in our minds. So there is a difference. Yes, there is a difference. And so I got to deal with it too.